Welcome to Gold Coast Insider, where we bring you business insights, stories, opportunities, and forecasts from movers and shakers across the Gold Coast. I'm your host, Estella Rodiguero. I'm CEO of Regional Development Australia Gold Coast. It is my pleasure to introduce and be speaking with Dr. John Zakos today. Dr. Zakos is an Honorary Professor at the School of Software with the University of Technology, Sydney. John co-founded the artificial intelligence company Cognea in 2005. The company became recognised as a world leader in delivering virtual human solutions before being acquired by IBM in 2014. John was the Program Director for Virtual Agent Technologies at IBM Watson Group until 2019, where he played a key role in developing the next generation of cognitive computing alongside colleagues at IBM. Dr. Zakos holds a PhD in AI and has published his work internationally. He also holds numerous patents and has been given invited talks at forums such as TED. Welcome, John.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's great to connect and talk.
Yeah. Look, John, I've done a little bit of research on you and I found out that you mentioned that you were lucky to go to one of the first high schools in Australia with a dedicated computer lab, and on your second class, your life changed forever.
Yeah, that's right. It sounds like a bit of a love story, but it kind of is in a way, in a professional sense. Well, I didn't realize really at the time, but looking back on it, I was in year 9 at Trinity Lutheran College, which is in Ashmore here on the Gold Coast. And, I think it was year 9 is the first year at school. I don't know how it works these days, but back then it was the first year that you could actually pick an elective subject. And sort of starts to get exciting because you start to have choices in life, even at school. Yeah. And anyway, I picked the computer studies subject, and then in the second class, the teacher, Mr. Bartels, if I remember correctly, he wrote a little program, just like a 10-line computer program, showed us on the screen, and he ran it and made a little beeping sound and printed some stuff on the screen. And that little moment on that, whatever it was, Tuesday or Thursday afternoon or whatever, at 2:00, just sort of captivated me because it was just exciting to see that you could program a computer. You could basically put in some instructions and it could beep or play some music or print some stuff out or do some calculation. And it was just fascinating to me. So sort of pretty quickly, I realized that if you spend a lot of time kind of making the program more sophisticated, spend time programming, you could do all sorts of wonderful things. So then I went on and then I think I got an A in my the year. So I did this for a couple of years. In the year 10 end of year assignment, I got like an A or an A plus, I think, from my only one at school for the program that I wrote at the time, which was a little AI program about a chat. I called it Let's Chat, and I made like a little box. Like I actually put a little box together and I called it Aussie Soft and copyright symbol and all this sort of stuff. And it was a little chat program to actually talk like, hey, how you doing? What's your favorite sport? And we'll chat back and forth with you. And so before I probably even realized I was doing like artificial intelligence stuff, I was probably didn't even know the term artificial intelligence at the time, but I was doing things that were kind of a little bit like pushing the boundaries, so to speak, or relatively speaking.
You say following on from high school, you went to Griffith University.
So that basically led to me thinking what I'm going to do after school. And the thing I enjoyed the most at school in terms of studies was computer stuff. And then that led on to me going to doing computer science at Griffith University, which I did an undergraduate all the way through to finishing my PhD. And even at Griffith, especially in the postgrad honors and PhD, it's all about doing research, innovative technologies, artificial intelligence, and really pushing the boundaries. So the undergraduate gives you your founding sort of education and then going on doing research. So I guess my high school years kind of were the baby steps towards the more serious stuff that sort of came a bit later without me even realizing at the time.
Yeah. And you say that you've spent a good portion of your life thinking about thinking machines.
Yeah. So as it turns out, Yeah, so I ended up founding Cognea, or co-founding Cognea, with my with Liesl Kappa, my previous business partner, I guess. And yeah, that whole the whole thing at Cognea was about, conversational AI, kind of like Siri on the iPhone, but you have this is for like enterprises and customer service. And before that, at university, doing research into like computer aided diagnosis systems, like systems that help doctors make detection and diagnose cancer. And then also my PhD was intelligent search engine technology, like really intelligent ways to search the web and get information beyond like Google and Yahoo and so forth.
Hmm.
So yeah, so basically my entire career has been spent thinking about thinking machines. When we say thinking machines, we mean cognitive computing, artificial intelligence, how to program and make models in the like digital models that make the computer think through things and solve problems and make decisions in a way that's generalized. It's not just a hard-coded program thing. It's a ability to generalize and make decisions.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, and I'm still interested in that. That's still something that excites me and interests me. Although I've got interest in other areas as well, but it's something that's become a lifelong passion, I guess.
So we mentioned earlier the Cognea company.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been really successful because that obviously, that went over to IBM. You've had a successful company that's you've built a global company.
Yeah.
Can you please talk us through now, just here on the Gold Coast at Cohort, for instance, we have over 300 different businesses, about 50 of those are startups. It'd be really interesting to hear your story about how you built it from your startup right through your journey and then to the process of that selling
Yeah.
the company. And
Yeah.
do you want to walk us through that process and how that went? I think it probably had some tough times, but
Yeah, sure. So so when I think people tend to see the high level summary and think, oh yeah, that was all pretty easy. But for me, there were lots of challenges. There was lots of hard work, lots of hitting the wall and falling over and getting back up again. That includes financially, emotionally, with technological breakthroughs and so forth. So it really tests you a lot. Well, it did for me anyway. But the way it sort of starts is you kind of, you're waking up in the mornings and you have an intention to want to maybe do something to shape the world, do something, have an impact in the world. And by being entrepreneurial, the people who are drawn to undertake entrepreneurial endeavors want to be challenged in different ways, because you got to wear like 8 different hats and you have to challenge yourself in different ways to make progress. So and I can talk about my particular part. There's not one single part. There's different ways to do things. But in my particular experience, it was about first having a vision. So when we started the company, we did not have the idea. I could not tell you on the first day that we found the company what our idea was. We just had a high level intention to do something that related to the delivery of personalized information to users online on the web. That's it. That broad and that general. Okay, so we had some sort of fuzzy high level sort of category, but we didn't have an idea. We didn't have an idea, oh yeah, we're going to build an electric car that drives itself. No, we just had, just a general sort of idea. And then we spent the first 6 months researching, thinking, traveling, going to conferences, just talking to people, having coffees with anybody who'd want to have a coffee with us. Like I'm talking about like venture capital people, other entrepreneurs, people in the field and so forth. Anyway, cut the long story short on this particular part of the story is basically I was on a trip to the US, my first trip to the US, in my life, actually. I was about 27 years old, and spent about a month in the US and went to about 4 or 5 different cities, and I just met people. And during that trip, it dawned on me that online chat, like having typing chat conversations, was becoming more prevalent more people were spending more time chatting than they were searching through a search engine or even writing emails. That was the trend that I picked up on. And so then I thought, well, what if you can make sort of an agent, this digital agent or this virtual assistant, virtual agent type of thing, to actually learn to be like you, to talk like you, and actually do things for you online, like fill out forms, pay transactions, and do stuff. And I thought, well, yeah, we've got MSN Messenger at the time, and Skype was booming, and all these other forums. And I thought, you know what, we can do something in this space. So anyway, I came back from this trip with about 5 different ideas, with this being the craziest one on top of the list. And without even doing any serious market research or anything, we just thought that's a crazy idea. We can see all these crazy applications for it. This is what we're going to do. And that's just how we started. I didn't sit there looking at market reports or doing like fundamental sort of studies into areas. We just thought it's a crazy, cool, fun idea. We can see applications. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
So then we started. So basically we went from having a sort of an intention to having a vision to then start getting creative about how the technology was going to work. So I suppose the first one is the intention. When I say intention, it's basically dreaming. So you start dreaming about doing something entrepreneurial. You then start to form a vision about a certain thing that you want to do, which in our case was conversational AI. And then you have to start getting imaginative and creative. And this is where you start the process of innovation, where you basically start designing the solution or the technology or whatever it is. In our case, we're looking at language models and digital personalities and the way people think. We looked at psychology as well, because Liesl, my business partner, we had a psychology background. So we mixed the areas of psychology and computer science, and we came up with this new innovative way of going about conversational AI. Conversational AI existed as a field before, but no one had really broken into the market in a way where it scaled, where it was really affordable, it was manageable for clients and so forth. So we basically went about building this platform, this conversational AI platform, which is what Cognea is or was. And we started working on that. It took a couple of years to go from this is what we're working on to, well, this is our first version.
Yeah.
Probably 18 months, I think, to get the first version. And then 6 months to get our first customer, which was National Australia Bank at the time.
Wow.
So we went from having the idea, developing it, and then to get National Australia Bank was basically cold calling. We cold called their switchboard basically and just said, can we talk to someone in the online web page department? And they put us through to someone, and after a couple of phone calls and redirection stuff, we got someone. They said, okay, well, how about you just send through some information by email? We sent through some information by email, and like 2 months later, we get a call back saying, hey, why don't you come and talk to us? And so then after probably about 5 or 6 meetings, like I'm talking like rooms full of like 10 people in each meeting and presenting to like different directors and stuff in that technology customer service space, they gave us an opportunity to do a trial. So I think at the time they paid us something like only like 30 grand for us to do a 6-month trial. So we worked like day and night for like 6 months to go from that alpha first version we had to improving it and developing the models that they needed to run their application. And then anyway, after having National Australia Bank, that then opened doors in the US because we had people who knew about National Australia Bank in Australia. I'm talking about Australians who were working in the US who learned about us, who were impressed with what they saw, and then opened doors and channels into the US, which would then result in me spending a lot of time basically living in the US and getting clients there, which then led to IBM. So that's the basic high-level story.
Yeah.
In that we pivoted a couple of times. So pivoting is an interesting thing because you talked about, the concept of being resilient and persistent. That's very, very key in this world of, startups. It's the easiest thing to do is come up across a couple of problems and just stop.
Yeah.
You could be tired mentally, emotionally, you could be drained of funds and so forth. And that's where a lot of companies stop. And I think 9 out of 10 technology startups, 9 out of 10 have stopped. They don't exist within 3 years. So if you can get to the 3-year mark and get past that and still exist in some form, then you usually go on to have some form of success. So you've got to be resilient. But you've got to know when to pivot. So pivot means making a change in strategy or changing your product and changing a fundamental change in what you're doing to react to what you have in front of you, to what you're being faced with. And you got to know when to pivot. So knowing when to pivot's important. You can't just go pivoting, I think, every second month, because you just end up all over the place. But you got to know when to pivot. And we pivoted a couple of times. One was we started off with a consumer product and we pivoted to make it more enterprise, so we could sell to someone like National Australia Bank. And the next time we pivoted was just doing something within the enterprise space where we had to add more channels and go beyond just like the web chat. We added voice and other channels. So we had to pivot again. So you have to know when to pivot. And there are lots of difficult moments where I remember sitting at home, working out of my bedroom on a Tuesday night, not having any money in the bank and wondering how I'm going to pay like $80,000 worth of salaries at the end of the month because a contract was cancelled, an investor didn't come through, or whatever it may be. And you're just thinking, how am I going to get through this? Just feels so crap.
Yeah.
After like 5 years, you're meant to be sort of in a bit better of a position. But these entrepreneurial endeavors have volatility, has instability, and it's not smooth sailing usually. It may be for some people, but usually there's a lot of like hurdles and roadblocks. So my experience on that particular topic is, one, the problem always seems worse than it is. It seems worse than it is. Like, it is a bit crappy. It is challenging. It is, kind of hitting your head against the wall and what are you going to do sort of feeling. But it feels worse in the moment than it actually is. If you can like take a step out and put yourself on Mars and look back at the planet and look at where you are and what you've done, you'd look at it totally different. But when you're living it and you're staring at that bank account or you're dealing with the cancellation of a big contract or something, or whatever, there's a bunch of challenges that could come up. It's always worse than it is. So my thing is, remind yourself that it's always worse than it is. And two, be proactive about it. So if you have a challenge, or let's just say you can't pay somebody because you don't have the money to do it, get in front of it, pick up the phone, talk to the people involved, explain, like share your vision, share your intention, share where you're going, make them see the bigger picture, and maybe try to work through some situations, as opposed to just thinking, oh, that's a problem that I can't work with, it's too hard, then therefore I stop doing everything.
No, that's good advice. So I guess from that point of view, it isn't an easy road to take. So is it a natural progression to go from university straight to going and becoming a startup? What's the middle gap? How do you do that line through?
I think, it is. I think that's not bad. I mean, if someone has an intention to be that of an entrepreneur and they want to go straight out of uni, that's fine. I did 2.5 years of work as an employee in a company in Melbourne. And I got experience as a software engineer there. So that was good. I got to see how a kind of a medium, how big we're, about 60 or 70 people. In that company. So I got to see how that sort of company worked. But the reason I left that company is because I wanted to move. I was a bit probably too ambitious for that company in terms of my role in the company, and they couldn't really open up a more ambitious sort of role for me. But the good thing was that I got experience working in a professional software development group. So getting experience is good, I think, but not to the extent where you let that experience or the experience you have shape exactly how it has to be for you when you're going to be entrepreneurial. You've got to separate the two. And experience is just a point of reference. It's a learning experience. It's a learning opportunity, sorry. And I never wanted to get too comfortable with being an employee. It never really fulfilled me 100% and so forth. So for me, it was a learning experience. It was a learning opportunity. And my back of my mind was always to do my own thing. And then I found the opportunity to do that. And I think you can do it straight out of uni. Great if you can get some experience, but not absolutely necessary. It's just really, if you have a vision and a desire, a strong desire to be entrepreneurial, then you can go for it.
Yeah. So bringing it back to the Gold Coast, what do you see as the opportunities for the Gold Coast?
Well, I'm on the Gold Coast for so I live on the Gold Coast because of family, friends, and lifestyle. But when I look at the Gold Coast from a innovation, entrepreneurial, professional standpoint, I just think there's massive opportunities for the Gold Coast to have a bigger entrepreneurial culture, and that can be fostered through a few different ways, like local and state government, through the universities. I don't think there's very few universities in Australia that I think have a strongish entrepreneurial culture. One of the reasons I'm at UTS is because they do, and I love that about UTS. And when I met them while I was in the US still, man, they said, when you come back to Australia, we'd like you to be involved. We love the way you think about how university should be and so forth. So, and UTS is going that direction. So the Gold Coast can be more entrepreneurial, but how do you become more entrepreneurial? For me, it's not about accelerators or incubators or having like a desk to go and work with and just hang out with some kind of like-minded people. Maybe that's a small part of it. It more comes down to inspired, determined individuals who are, one, inspired, and two, have support. So I guess I was inspired. I had to find my own inspiration. I went to Griffith University, fantastic university, but I wouldn't say that I was inspired at all to be entrepreneurial by going to Griffith. But
So what did inspire you, John?
Well,
or where did you find your inspiration?
Yeah. Look, the inspiration for me is more of a deeper family type of thing, because my parents were both came from Greece as immigrants in the 60s and 70s, and my dad formed his own business in the retail clothing and manufacturing space, and I saw what he did in terms of his life and career as a businessman. And so I know where he started, where he came from as a little kid in a poor village on the mountainside in Greece, to where he came through Melbourne and to the Gold Coast and what he did. And so I got my inspiration from that, combined with I had a 6-month internship that I did during my PhD at IBM Research in Japan. And when I came back from those 6 months of collaborating with people in Japan at IBM Research, I felt that, hey, if I can come as a young Australian technology person, if I can come to Japan, and I think I performed really well. They were very happy with me there. I was very productive. I just got confidence from that sort of international experience. Yep. And I was in a very innovative environment, because each research team had to actually have a real world product. So you were not just there doing research and publishing papers, you were actually doing research that led directly into a product. And every research team had to have a product and a customer.
Wow.
So I got inspiration from that, one, working at an international level with leading Japanese technologists.
Yep.
And I just came back thinking, okay, and that combined with my sort of family history and seeing how my dad was always thinking, he never had like a job other than the first 18 months that he was in Australia. He was always doing his own thing. So I came from, I think, a family with that kind of mindset, plus these exposure to some experiences in my early years that gave me that.
But I guess that for people who possibly don't have those opportunity, or that opportunity, particularly the one to go overseas, mentors would have to be, are they fundamental, or they would just be?
It helps. It helps. Yeah, it helps. Yeah, it helps. It helps. I don't think of having someone as an out-and-out mentor, although I met some interesting people. And then when I met Liesl, my business partner, where we formed a partnership, I appreciate a lot of things in her and how she thought about the world and stuff. And she appreciated stuff in me, and we kind of like combined and inspired each other, I guess, to new levels.
So workforce and skills are a challenge, and not just here on the Gold Coast, but throughout the whole of Australia, really. You work with students and staff at the University of Technology in Sydney to inspire and facilitate, that high-end innovation. Where do you see the future of those skill requirements being placed? Like, what do you see the future being, and what can we do to facilitate that continuous growth in that direction?
I think one thing that UTS do really well that I love, which I'd love to see more broadly at universities, so this includes Gold Coast universities and other universities, is industry. So one way you can get more entrepreneurial is get industry collaboration happening. So while you're at university, working on a real industry project for some of your time, I think is valuable. And it also gets the university thinking about the intellectual property that it's at the university and placing that in the real world. Okay, so that automatically it gives you a level of, I'm not saying full entrepreneurship, but it gives you a level of thinking about innovation in the real world beyond learning. It's more about sort of doing. And I'm not talking about a student project for 6 months that just students work on. I'm talking about a real world paid project that you collaborate on with an industry partner. So that's a good thing. Another thing is actual programs that support entrepreneurial thinkers and doers. So, for example, could be a program at university or within the community where people can work on their ideas, work with mentors, advisors, and actually have a reasonable chance of getting some like funding and support to go to the next level. So I feel very grateful that our company, we applied for an Australian government grant. It was called Commercial Ready back then. And we got, I think, $1.2 million at the time. This is about in our second year, I think in our second year of founding the company. So that played a big role. Think about that. I'm a young Australian technology person with this sort of crazy idea, but and I could actually find it was a Liberal government at the time, John Howard, Liberal government, and we got this funding, and it was I'm not saying you can go out give $1 million to anybody and everybody who applies, but the fact that existed is a great example. But I just think more can be done sort of on these topics to make it so more people can be supported.
So, John, the other thing is it easy, like if you're working on an AI program development, so is it easy then to put a commercial hat on? So if you're in that world and you're trying to transition to scaling up, how easy is it to put the commercial hat on? And
it's hard because usually if you're like an engineer technology person, you're not usually commercially minded in the way that you kind of need to be.
Yeah.
So it's not easy. So you need to either sort of try to become that, like I basically did. I had a sort of a desire to be, I guess, and I learned very quickly. So I used to just learn everything off Liesl and other people and just try to get up to speed with that. And or you just find people to work with. So part of the thing, you can't do everything yourself. So find people to work with to take care of stuff. So I think the commercial stuff is easier to learn than the technical stuff. You've got the technical stuff because that's years of technical knowledge, and you can't just kind of like read a book and get it. You can read a book and get an idea about technology stuff, but you need to spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and days of working on some developing skill and everything, technical skill, where the commercial stuff is closer to just sort of closer to everyday stuff, transactions, valuing something, buying and selling, subscribing to something, the value you place on something, how to, it's closer to real world stuff that you can kind of relate to, where the technology stuff's a little bit more just, special technical stuff. So you can always learn the stuff with a desire to do that. And that's through people and education.
And I guess one of the points I'm picking up on is that it's all about those contacts, and it's all about that, the collaboration you're having. I mean, you first got into the National Australia Bank, but it was someone from Australia that highlighted it overseas. So it really is all about that
networks. Yeah, networking is part of it.
Yeah,
networking is part of it. And I wouldn't say networking is my strongest part. It was a really good part of Liesel's. Not that I can't network, but I just sort of I don't know, I'm just maybe a little bit more introverted in a way on that particular topic. And I just prefer working on the product and so forth. But networking is part of it. Yeah, networking is part of it. It's like you meet someone at a conference or at a gathering, and Liesel used to say, every 6 months you just touch base with this person, say hi, see what they're up to, even if you're not going to have a coffee or anything, and just build your network. You never know what can come with something. I know the big contract in the US that we got was I met, it was a chance meeting with somebody that then I had to get up for a 4 a.m. meeting in Australia to take the initial meeting in the US and so forth. So you never know what can come of a meeting is I guess what I'm trying to say. And you never know what you can offer to somebody else. Always good to be able to share and offer what you know with other people. As long as it doesn't it doesn't go beyond your kind of, like within reason, I guess, within reason, because you don't get too distracted with your own stuff. But to offer, and then also you never know what can come your way as well.
Absolutely. You grew up on the Gold Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So what draws you and holds you here on the Gold Coast? Yeah,
so really it's family, friends, and lifestyle is the simple way to say it. The Gold Coast, I've traveled quite extensively. I've lived overseas, and the Gold Coast is a wonderful city. Yeah, it doesn't have everything, doesn't have certain cultural things like other cities in Australia around the world do, but it is what it is for a good reason. And it's a beautiful coastal city. It's now about 1 million people, I think. I think we're almost 1 million population. So it's probably getting a bit too big for me, but not that I'm going anywhere soon. But I just like obviously the lifestyle and family, friends is pretty simple. And I grew up there, so it's a comfortable place to live.
Yeah, that's right. It's got the best of both worlds. We've got the wonderful hinterland and we've got the wonderful beach, and
absolutely,
it's actually grown. It's really grown in professionalism. It's a place where you can do business no matter where you are on the Gold Coast, and the variety of types of businesses you can do is just amazing. I keep saying you can work on a rocket going into space from the Gold Coast. I mean, who would have thought,
It has improved in that area. We've still got more room for growth in that, but definitely last 20 years, astronomical improvement in terms of industry.
Yeah. Look, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, Dr. John. And thank you for taking your time. Your story is inspirational. So I really appreciate the words of wisdom. I've written them down. It's all about resilience and persistence. I take that on board. I think that's with nearly everything we want to do in business anyway, no matter where you are. So thank you very much for your time with me today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. A real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening today. For a complete list of podcast episodes and transcripts, go to rdagoldcoast.org.au/podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter.